Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining from. It's been a long time, I believe, right?
Actually, months.
It's been months, and we've not had a conversation here at Sustainability Now podcast. And now we are back to continue the conversation. It was really interesting the past episodes, sharing and talking about the different areas about environmental sustainability, down to the actions we're supposed to be taking, down to climate change, down to we even talked about farming. We talked about sustainable agriculture
Yeah.
and the likes of that. So it was series of exciting conversation, and we want to keep having those series of conversations. And before we get started, I would just like to ask, how have you been the past month?
It's been interesting, coupled with the fact that, work, school, and, personal life, but God has been faithful. Let me not drag it.
Awesome. It's great to be back here. For me too, it's been really, really amazing and great the past
You just say
months.
just amazing.
Yeah,
Show your hand
amazing.
now.
Amazing and great.
Okay.
So the past month I also got married. So that's
Yay!
something that's new. I got married in June, which is something that's really
Show them the ring very
very
well.
exciting. They've seen
He's
the ring.
taking.
They've seen it.
And
Please
sorry,
ignore.
we're actually not together. I got that question
A
a
lot.
lot.
I got that
So,
question a lot too.
see, my hand is
I got that question a
clear
lot too. But
and
I got married in June, so it's like having to settle in and all of that. And now we're back to continue the conversation we've been having about sustainability. And we want to get started today with something I think that it's, I would say, obvious, right? Because we had
it's
those
prevalent.
conversations before. I think in more than one episode, we spoke about what people should do, the flooding, preparing for the rainy season, rainwater harvesting, and the likes of that. And now we're experiencing it. It's happening. Flood is taking over in different cities, and the most important one that we raised alarm on, Lagos, the big guy. We
They're
saw
literally
this,
underwater.
we saw this coming. So we would start the conversation from there, talking about what is actually, let's start.
So my understanding is it's planning, and then planning without proper understanding from the different stakeholders involved. Everyone has just built in silos. Everyone has operated individually in their own space without a collaborative effort. Do you understand? To properly build, properly plan states, nation. Do you get? Because where your planning stop as a state government, there is a regional planning. There should be regional planning, and then there should be like a national planning. Do you understand? And then Africa too as a whole. Because you'll be surprised that a lot of these issues are actually more interconnected than we can explain. Do you understand? Whatever happens from the beginning of River Nile, River Niger, River Benue, it will invariably affect the state, the community at the lower part of the river. So it's more intricate than you can ever imagine. So it's not a one man mistake, it's not a one man problem.
Definitely. It's it's again complex, right? Different stratas to it. But you made a statement about understanding. I wouldn't want us to use the word maybe understanding, because I think to a great extent they have that knowledge. They know, right? To a great extent. Somehow I think it's I would say maybe issues of negligence or lack of implementation, because I remember in one of the episodes where you were talking about housing in Lagos. We were looking at housing in Lagos, that most of the greenery, most of the marshlands, most of the places that are
The
supposed to
flood
absorb,
plains. Yeah.
yeah, the floodplains that are supposed to absorb water now have constructions on them. Houses are already built on them, roads are constructed on them, and the likes of that. So now that that mistake, or that error have happened in Lagos, it's there a remedy.
Yes, there is. There are remedies, and it's not just one. And at this point, it's like a national concern because you see that every now and again, probably towards the end of the year, you start hearing of flood in Kano, Sokoto, or any other northern region where they have like quite a significant river body present passing through the state. Do you understand? So it's a national concern because I remember I think we were having the conversation and I said if we're really trying to resolve this problem, it's a multidimensional approach. It's not just a one task that will just suddenly solve everything. It has to be like tackled and on all fronts. Do you get? And my major take on this is there has to be an understanding on why certain steps needs to be taken, why certain infrastructures needs to be in place. At this point, rainwater harvesting should be a mandatory task for every stakeholder on any level because if rainwater is not harvested, it will contribute to the flash flood that we are all experiencing. And most states at the lower part of Nigeria are the ones that will be receiving end. See, I saw a recent post about a flood, it was in Port Harcourt also. And I mentioned it that all the states within the coastal regions of Nigeria are at a disadvantage because they are the receiving end. Whatever has been coming from up would definitely go down. Do you get? That's like the natural water channel from the highest to the lowest, from the top to the bottom. Water literally flows down. And then flowing down, mind you, the water table for the states at the coastal region is already high because of the coast region that they are close to. Do you understand? The large presence of large water bodies there. They're already at a disadvantage. So the ability to absorb the impact of flood is very little because they're already at their peak. Their absorbent nature for the soil texture is almost not there. So my solution is, or part of my solution is, how about a situation where other states are mandated to slow down the effects by engaging in massive rainwater collection. Do you understand? Let it be dammed, let it be collected, and then slowly released. So that during that raining season, you can imagine we're in a room, you release 100 barrels, another person release 100 barrels, another person release. At the end of the day, the whole place is flooded simultaneously because there is water for the rain in that region, there is water for the rain for other regions. Do you understand? Because it's really crazy and it can be worked on, but it would need a collective effort from individuals, from private organizations, from the government, and even neighboring countries, because we have to sit down to understand it. And that's why a lot of the northern regions that are close to the desert, there is vast desert encroachment because the water is not staying. That's what reduces desertification. When it rains and then the water stays, the ground will absorb it, and then in the process, seeds will sprout. There will be a lot of green cover. But in a situation where the soil is packed because of movement, because of no green, because when there is greenery, it also affects the soil texture. It helps it to loosen up, and in that process, water is able to seep in, and the whole process that is involved. But in a place where the land is locked, there is little to no penetration, rain is falling and everything will just run off, and then ultimately it will even affect the water table. That's why in some regions, probably where places where they used to get water before, they are not getting water. They'll now have to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig, because when the rain falls, is the natural mechanism for the earth to replenish its supply. And the number of activities that is happening within the earth's surface right now has increased a lot, especially in Africa. A lot of private residences own boreholes. So imagine you dig, I dig, everybody digs, and then whatever, even if it's what's the word now? Even if it's unending, it will still be affected. The level will drop.
Yeah.
If you were digging to say 20,000 feet before, you probably have to go to 40,000, 50,000 just to reach. And even if resources is surplus, there's a level of use that it will affect its supply. And there is nothing that if it's being used consistently and then is not being replenished, it will deplete.
Definitely. So there's a contest, right, that I want you to further explain, right, so that viewers and listeners can understand when you say rainwater harvesting, right? So when you talk about rainwater harvesting, can you try to
Break it
down to narrate what you mean by the rainwater harvesting and how it can help both in the household level, say the estate level, and if it wants to go to an industrial scale, what would that picture look like?
So for a household level, it will be that when rain falls, there are channels along the roofing sheets that people used to in those days harvest water, and then they had a lot of drums in front of their house, because we did it at some point, and you harvest the water and you use it instead of going to fetch water from the well or stream or wherever. Do you understand? And what it does is it reduces the amount of water the earth at that point needs to absorb. Just like I said earlier, if 100 people simultaneously pour 100 barrels of water, there will be an excess for that period. But if at intervals is released, if I release today, you release your 100 tomorrow, it might not turn to a flood. It will just mean that, the soil in that area is moist, and then it encourage proper agriculture or, proper farming and everything. But that's not even the point. The point is every household uses water. It will reduce the dependency on borehole. If properly, let's say someone who is just about to build their house right now is listening to us, what it will mean is, when people dig sockaway, drainage, the sewage, and then they create an earthing collection system. There are parts of Benin, Edo State that I know they practice that, where they collect a lot of water during rainy season. They channel it inside, and that's what they use during dry season. So if you can do that, perfect. You just need to filter it and need to sterilize it. You use coal, charcoal, and some other natural means of purification. Mind you, they even researched that rainwater has its own benefit, because it has active ions, or I didn't properly research that, but it also has its own benefit. There are people that specifically collect rainwater because of its properties. And then when that is collected, you use it. You can use it for your hygiene purpose, sanitary. You don't necessarily have to use it to cook.
So I can relate to that very well, because I grew up in a town where water was a problem. In fact, to get a borehole is difficult, very difficult. If you were able to get access to water through a borehole, it dries up in like a month. Between 1 to 3 months, it dries up. So water was difficult. So we buy water. So during rainy season is the time everybody harvests. Like you save
every
drop that you can get. So when it rains, in fact, it's a task. You must fetch water. In fact, the worst thing that would happen is that your parents are not at home and it rained and you didn't fetch. Like you didn't fetch that water. So it's usually an issue. But what happens is there's a well Like the well is massive, unlike the natural well where you have the water can come underground, but this well is sealed, like fully
For
sealed for
storage.
storage of water. So the drainage from the roof, it's linked,
Collected
connected
into.
into the well to collect water. So as rain during the rainy season, water is being stored. So when like the dry season, when there's no water, that water is what we usually use for every other activity apart from drinking. So drinking water was just the only challenge where we have to now rely on sachets, water at the time. So I can absolutely relate on what you're saying now. The challenge, or rather the lifestyle that we see now, is the fact that there is no need for harvesting rainwater because of I would say urbanization, right? Except the rural communities where they still have the challenge, the water scarcity challenge. But for cities where they already have boreholes, they do not see the need. Just wrap up, I think um, because we've spent time on this episode specifically looking at rainwater harvesting, I know there are also some natural kind of filter and purification system where you use pebbles, stones, sand, and the likes of that to also create. I think you're replicating an aquifer, a natural aquifer, in the sense. So that's another design that estates can also look into to be able to absorb as much water as possible. I think another reason why maybe this part of, or rather in Nigeria, those major coastal areas, it's water is not a problem because it's not scarce. That's the reason they don't want to harvest it. I know in places where water is really scarce, they need water, they're interested in harvesting rainwater and the likes of that. But it can go a long way to cut down what goes out into the environment. So it's important for us to look at that design as a solution first, to see that it cuts down the amount of water that is released, and that might cause flooding or lead to those flash floods. So that's just one measure. In the next episode, we will talk about another measure. I think there are two other measures that I want us to discuss.
Okay.
That's on the housing. We're going to look at housing, and then we're going to look at waste management. Then maybe integrate waste management with climate change issues and conversation. So thank you very much for listening to this episode of Sustainability Now podcast. See you on the next one.